Welcome to The Human Athlete, a podcast about life after sport and how to win it. I'm Jared Markiewicz. I started this show because I've always been fascinated by what happens after the final whistle, when athletes have to rebuild purpose, discipline, and identity outside of competition. Every episode, you'll hear honest conversations with former athletes who are learning to lead, perform, and live with meaning beyond the game. Because the lessons sport teaches us can help us all live stronger, more intentional lives.
Okay, welcome to The Human Athlete. Today we have Mariah Dunham. Mariah Dunham is a longtime basketball coach and former collegiate athlete with more than 15 years of experience across high school, AAU, and college programs. She currently serves as an assistant coach at Baraga area schools.
Baraga.
Is that right?
Baraga.
Baraga?
Yeah.
Okay. Where the team is off to its best start in 8 years. Before returning to Baraga, Mariah spent 2 seasons in the coaching staff at Michigan Tech University, focusing on post-player development, and previously helped lead Baraga High School to its first ever state runner-up finish. She also has held leadership roles as a head coach, assistant athletic director, and senior woman administrator, guiding her teams to consistent postseason appearances and a conference championship. As a player, Mariah earned 3 letters at the University of Wisconsin, reaching the WNIT championship game, before finishing her career at Northern Michigan University, where she averaged over 14 points per game and earned all conference honors. A former state player of the year and Hall of Fame inductee in Wisconsin. She's also deeply committed to education, holding multiple degrees, and currently pursuing her doctorate, while continuing to invest in the next generation of athletes. Mariah,
Hey.
any guest today?
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for having me.
So I'd love to start a little bit with your athletic career. And obviously you've been teaching or coaching now for a long time. So we're going to go back a bit here, but walk me through the experience you had as a collegiate basketball player, both at Wisconsin and then Northern Michigan. And I know there's some stories there, so we can go wherever you want to go with this.
Yeah. It was a obvious dream, a kid from Wisconsin, about, 45 minutes away from Madison, to be heavily recruited by, all of the Big Ten. Yeah, as a sophomore, I started getting all those accolades in high school and, lots of notarization from all these other schools. Unfortunately for me, I didn't really have anyone in my life kind of talking to me about collegiate sports and what happens in college and when you go on visits, what questions to ask. It was just kind of like I was the first one in my family to go to college. And so we were kind of just like, oh, let's just go where we think would be interesting. And when I got the offer from Wisconsin, obviously it's a huge accolade, like I said, and it's every kid's dream to play for, the University of Wisconsin-Madison for the Badgers. And I had teammates from my AAU programs that I had played with there. Jolene Anderson was there, which, she's a Hall of Famer, All-American. And how could you just not, say yes to going and playing for them? And, I made that decision and I met some incredible women, my teammates, people that I'd graduate before I came in, really awesome, incredible people that I still have contact with, a lot of my teammates from Wisconsin, and, really value those relationships that I made and created over the last, the 3 years that I was there. And then, bumping into Northern, having the experience to kind of drop down in Division II, not really knowing what Division II is about. I mean, again, as a senior in high school, all you hear people say is go D1, go D1, go D1. And so you feel that pressure of like, oh, I guess I have to only look at Division I schools, not really realizing how special Division II is. And so I was actually honored to attend Northern, knowing that they were kind of mid-pack to below the pack kind of team. But when I took my visit there, I found something special in the group of ladies that I was there with. I found work ethic, the same work ethic that I had found when I was, playing for Watertown. Same type of players, like just gritty players that loved being in the gym. They were very open to the fact that, I'm kind of coming from Wisconsin and I'm coming from Division I, and I don't really know the last time that Northern had someone transfer in like that. And so they were very welcoming, and the coach was very welcoming. And, with my experiences that had happened at Wisconsin, he was really the only coach to just say, all I want you to do here is play hard, play like you know how to play, and everything else on this team will fall into place. And, when he said that to me, I was just kind of like, all right, this is the atmosphere that I kind of feel very comfortable in. And I decided, to go to Northern. And that was one of the best decisions that I could have ever made. Division II is no joke. It's very skilled players, and maybe not the most athletic like in Division I, but they have everything else. They can pass, they can dribble, they can shoot. A lot of the teams in the GLIAC are girls that probably could go Division I, just decided, Division II was more of a balance in life for them. And so, playing there, it felt a lot like how I felt in high school. I could just be free. I didn't have to try to fit myself in a system. I could play how I wanted to play, loosely. And, the Coach Matson believed in me there, and he kind of gave me the reins a lot of the time. And I loved playing for Northern, and I loved being in that kind of underdog mentality like we were at Wisconsin, but this was kind of a different, I guess, feeling. And my senior year, which was my only year that I got to play there, I battled through some injuries. I had a sprained ankle, like in our third game, and that injury kind of nagged me with back injuries. And I was getting like cortisone shots, and I was trying to play on sprained ankles. And it really wasn't until the end of season where I started to feel better from all of, the damage that I had done on my body for so long. And, I played really well down the stretch, and we made it, to the regional finals, and we were in the NCAA tournament. And it was just one of those experiences as a senior that you're like, wow, like I actually made an impression on this program, and we did something that this program hasn't done in a long time, which was win and get to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah. Well, and my question to you, because I think that is a really interesting pathway. Yeah, a athlete, and I feel like there's a lot of athletes that do this too, where they'll go, actually literally did the exact opposite to you. He went to Northern Michigan first, and then he went to UW. Yeah. But did you feel like you were a big fish in a small pond? Because it doesn't sound like that. It sounds like you were really welcomed, and you felt like this was really almost more your home than UW was in that sense.
Yeah, like I said, I don't necessarily think it was like players wise. It was more so like just maybe in a smaller setting. Like I was in Marquette, which is a lot smaller than Madison, but also gave me Madison vibes. Like there was a lot of hippies there, and a lot of people that, are very open-minded. And, back in 2009, being an out player, being a lesbian in collegiate athletics wasn't a thing that people talked about. And my team just at Northern just embraced it. They were super accepting, and the coach was super accepting of who I was. And I think that's what allowed me to then let my guard down and just play how I always play. At UW, I just felt like it was more of a job. I felt like we were kind of treated as employees at times. And like I said, if it wasn't for my teammates, I don't know how long I truly would have stayed there, but I stayed there because I loved my teammates at UW. And when I got to Northern, it was just, I didn't feel like, like you said, like a big fish in a little pond. I felt accepted, and I felt like everyone was on the same page of winning. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to win, and I wanted to be a part of the winning.
Yeah, I mean, I feel as though when you feel a connection where things are right, even when the situation outside is wrong. You've got 14 other women playing alongside you at UW, and you know the situation is not right, but these women, like, I'm playing for them. But what a bonus to be in Northern Michigan, didn't finish out your college career where it's a great situation. And
Yeah.
you have the women who you're like, I want to be around them, I want to be playing for them also.
Yeah.
That combination, I imagine, is just refreshing, invigorating.
Yeah. It was, like I said, I didn't know what to expect at Division II. I really didn't, because everyone that told me, talking to me, you know, whether it was AU teammates or people at school in high school, they're like, you got to go big time. You got to go big time. You know, like, forget about, you know, smaller schools, you know, because I was recruited by Green Bay and Marquette and, you know, but everyone was pushing me to, you know, go in the Big Ten. And not having any background in my family, not having any background in college athletics, it kind of like made my vision narrow. And I kind of, when I was a college coach, that's kind of what I used in recruiting, is like, you got to listen. These are the things that you got to know. And I kind of helped those players like realize, you know, it's not all about what the name is. It's about how are you going to fit in that system. And for me, I just wish I would have done a little bit more work into knowing how I was going to fit at UW. And don't get me wrong, like, I made a lot of great things happen there, and I played with some of the most incredible, best basketball players that I've seen in a long time, with Janice Banks and Julian Anderson and Raylan D'Elia, and, you know, all of those players that have made an impression at UW. It was incredible to be and play against some of the best players that I've ever seen play basketball. Those experiences were cool, but when you actually get a part in the success and you get to help a team that was struggling kind of come out of that, it just makes it all more sweeter to be there and kind of finish your career like that.
Yeah. Well, and I think that it's really interesting. So let me get this right. You graduated in 2009?
From college?
Yeah.
2000. Well, I finished up 2012. So at Northern, I was there from 2009 to 2010. That was my senior year. So 2006 is when I graduated high school and then came into UW.
Well, that's where I think it's interesting, right? Because that whole landscape has changed dramatically. You know, the awareness, the recruiting process.
Yeah.
You know, and even I think I don't know, but I think for people that would be in your situation where first generation college students, there's so much more information now available to make a more educated, well thought out decision that's not just based on status.
Yeah.
Oh, Big Ten school.
Yeah.
Great. But is that your playing style?
Right.
Is the kind of coach that you want to play for? Right. Is it the system? And you just go down the line of all these things where all the information is much more readily available now. That I think and that's a little bit of kind of your transition through the collegiate playing into more of the impacting upcoming collegiate players happen, right? Is you started to realize, hey, I want to help these individuals where I wasn't helped. I didn't have the support.
Right. Yeah, and these kids have such, you know, now going in the system, they have, like you said, just so many tools. You know, you have so many recruiting services. Like, you can literally hire someone to push your name out there and talk to college coaches for you, and you can send videos and this and that. And like, we just didn't have that capability when I was going through it. It was just all, you know, they saw me at the state tournament, they saw me at an AAU event, and then they talked to my coach, and then my coach relayed the information to me. It was nothing like a recruiter, you know, recruiting services, you know, be like, this is how I think you would fit in this system, blah, blah, blah. And like you said, it's just, for me, I think I got wrapped up in some of that hype of status quo, and it was so nice as a college coach when you're talking to players that were kind of like me. Like, yeah, you would do well in Division I, you might not play your first or second year, but you could play, and then, or you could go Division II and play right away and have an incredible, career there, making a huge impact. And I see that at all levels. There's Division II players that are on the fence that could probably bump down to D3 and dominate. And so, with the transfer portal now kind of going crazy, it really wasn't like that either for me. Like, transferring was like, people look down upon transferring. Transferring mean like there's something wrong.
I was just gonna. It definitely had that connotation when you'd hear the word transfer. Gosh, I even feel like with UW football, it wasn't more than 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
When you hear the word transfer, and immediately you're like, "What happened?
Yeah.
What did he do wrong, or were his grades, or the infinite number of things you think about that are negative?"
Yep.
Where now it's just, I want the opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a double-edged sword to everything. It's great that kids have the freedom to kind of find their home and find what works for them. But as a college coach, it's very frustrating too, to like put all of your eggs in a kid's basket and pump them up. And then at the end of the season, they say, "Hey, I'm going somewhere else." And you're like, "I just spent like 4 years recruiting you, and now you're playing here, and I've, given you everything I had." And, you can't control people either way. And, but I can see how both sides would be affected by people transferring now. But like I said, when I was going through it, it was kind of like, "Ooh, they're transferring. Like, oh, what's happening?" And like I said, I know at Northern, like I was one of the first Division I players to transfer to Northern. You just didn't see that in the GLIAC a lot. And now it's like an open door. You see D1 players dropping down all the time to go D2. So it's, it's cool. It makes the game a lot more fun. It makes it more challenging for smaller schools, but I think a lot of small schools do rise to the occasion.
Well, I think like anything, there's transitions in life. No matter what happens, things are going to change. No matter what industry you're in, things are going to change. And right now, there's a little bit of wild, wild west to some degree with the transfer portal, NIL, and everything else. And I've talked about this with a number of people, where I think that the entirety of it. So we'll just use the entirety of this change in collegiate sports, where it becomes like we're almost positioning them in a more professional manner, what we deemed to be professional in the past. Like, you can get paid to play, and you have control a little bit over yourself more than the organization has control over you, which is how it felt, I feel like, before. There's definitely a positive way you can spin this.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to get through all the muck and the current, chaos going on, and figure out, I would imagine from a college coaching standpoint, what do we stand for? What are our values? Like a lot of businesses and organizations, you don't hire for skill sets. I mean, obviously that's super important in athletics, but it's skill sets combined with, what does that kid stand for? What are their innate values? How is their family life? Those kinds of things that are probably that much more important to you.
Yeah.
Because you go, okay, this is somebody who I feel like I can bring in and know that the effort and time I put in, I'm going to output a better human being.
Yeah.
Who hopefully happens to play for us for 4 years and help our team win games and get into the opportunity to win championships and so on. So.
Yeah. Yeah. When recruiting, that was kind of a segment that I would say a lot is, yeah, of course I'm recruiting you for the skills and what you can do with a basketball, but I'm more so recruiting you for the person that you are. And so a lot of the times, we would talk a little bit about basketball and more about life. And, you kind of learn like what their values are. What have they been through in their life that could be kind of a hiccup of them transitioning from high school to college, and what could be a barrier for them. And again, I think that's what I didn't get at Wisconsin. They didn't really like get to know how I came up in this world and how I was raised and the things that I went through. And, they kind of just took it as, oh, here's another, you know, all leading scorer, player of the year in Wisconsin. We got her on our team, check, done. There's the box. Instead of like, who are you? What are your values? What do you really appreciate? What do how can I coach you? What type of coach do you like? Like those were never questions asked. It's just all about basketball. And I guess I'm kind of thankful for that because I don't think I would be the coach that I am now without having that happen to myself.
I mean, I love the idea that if you're open to it and if you're honest with yourself, every experience we have in life, you can learn something from.
Right. Amen.
Sometimes you learn like, yes, this is what I want to do. This is someone I want to emulate in my life. And even if it's not in the same career path, so like, this is a person I just want to be around. They're the kind of person I want to be in the vicinity of.
Yep.
And then there is that did not go how I expected it to.
Yeah.
But I can learn something.
Yeah.
I need to dig in a little bit and reflect.
Yeah.
But there's something to be learned by this. And maybe it's now I know the things that I don't do that I shouldn't do in my life and go, okay, I see it.
Yep.
I understand it.
Yep.
And I realize that I'm going to treat people differently now because I've had this experience. I mean, to me, it's that whole thing. I believe everybody should be a server at a restaurant at some point in their life, just for a small little stage of life. To understand when you go out to dinner what that person had dealt with, so you can go, hey, I get it. And whatever situation it is behind the scenes that I can't see back in the kitchen or with your front desk person or whatever it might be, you have a respect for that person and don't treat them like garbage or irrelevant to you because you've been there, done that.
Yeah, and you honestly described my entire life. Like my entire life has been about maybe decisions that I made that weren't the best decisions and that I truly accept the fact that I was very young and I was very ill-equipped with a lot of communication. I didn't know the communication and I didn't know how to advocate for myself. I didn't know how to admit when I was wrong. And that's all about, part of growing up. And for myself, learning some of the lessons that I learned at UW and then taking them to Northern, I just felt like I changed completely who I was. And again, not all of it was my fault, and some of it was my fault. And I think that that's exactly how life's supposed to be. I don't think that life should be completely easy where you walk through everything and you don't learn a single thing. I've learned so much about myself to the point where I'm getting a doctorate degree. And if you ask any of my teammates from Wisconsin, they'd be like, no way. Because school was like the last thing on my mind. And it was in high school. It was always basketball, then school. And when I got to Northern and I had those teammates that, would pull me in and be like, no, it's got to be school. This is what Division II is. It's a balance of school and basketball. And learning those lessons and putting in the work has taught me so much about who I am. And I'm thankful for those things. And, when a kid's struggling and I see them struggling in their outside life, outside of basketball, it offers me and invites me in to say, hey, like I was here, like I know how you feel. We've all been there at some point in our life, whether or not people will admit it. But we all have. And it's what do you do with this adversity? How do you react off of the adversity? And it leads into basketball. It leads into exactly what happens in a game. And it's so awesome. That's what's so great about basketball. It's life lessons. And you can take it on and off the court, and that's why I love this game so much.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it's been a part of your life now since when you start playing basketball.
9 years old.
Okay, so 9 years old.
37. It's a long time.
Well, and what I think is really cool, because one of the fascinations that I have, this intense curiosity, is around athletes, and then the identity shift that has to occur as a former athlete, and then sort of the the rise back up in a different direction, and a different path. Basketball has remained constant for you. But what I think is really cool about what you just said is that the Division I, Division II jump was an identity shift for you also.
Mm-hmm.
It essentially put you in a place where you were all of a sudden recognizing, hey, I can be student athlete.
Yeah.
Which is like, is it student athlete or is it athlete student? Division I schools. But the idea of being student athlete and being able to say, yes, I can play basketball and get intensely focused on something that maybe I didn't realize I was passionate about.
Yeah.
And how far can I take that? Where now you're still coaching, you're teaching, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, which is super cool. But you're getting a doctorate. So you're going from first generation college kid, where it's like, at best you expect, we'll get a bachelor's degree and the next generation will iterate that on, to now getting a doctorate. I think that's just super cool. Yeah. You almost had that identity shift still within college, and that allowed you this path that you're on now.
Yeah. Here's like where I think it shifted. So my senior year at Northern, I got a call from a professional recruiter that wanted me to come try out to go play professionally overseas. I went and I did the tryout, and I got an offer to go play over in Switzerland. I knew that I was not finished with my bachelor's, and they said, "Oh, it's no problem. Like a lot of people do this; they just finish it, online overseas." And I took a hard look at myself, and I said, dang well, if you go overseas, you are not finishing that degree. You are going to go basketball, 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 forget school. And that's when it all clicked for me, when I was like, no, like I'm not going to allow myself not to finish something that I started. That's a really big quality of mine. And I had to put my foot down with myself and say, no, you're finishing this degree because I want to be the first one in my family to say, hey, I did this, I accomplished this. And, it took me a few years post bachelor's degree, due to coaching, college coaching, to look at myself again and say, no, you are going to pursue a master's degree. This is what you want to do. This is something that you want to learn more about. And getting my master's at Michigan State, which was hard to do because, it's Sparties and they don't like Michigan State.
Personally, as a Scottish fan, I keep Michigan worse. So I've got a fresh, misery about. He's like, well, I'm a Michigan State fan. I'm like, that's better than Michigan. Sport,
Yeah. So it was like, getting my master's degree in sport coaching and leadership and administration. It was like doors just started opening. Like I was like, oh my gosh, like everything that I've been through as a player and as a coach and learning about the science behind that has been just total mind altering. Like I'm coaching differently than I ever have before. I'm seeing things that, in my early on years of being a coach, the mistakes that I made and how to perfect them and how to make it better. And then as a player, recognizing how I was as a player and seeing the science behind that and where that came from and learning all about that. And now like getting my master's is just like, what else can I do? What else can I learn? How else can I perfect, some of my imperfections and how can I, keep building myself and building my resume at the same time? Because it's not all about the status. And that's the thing that I've always had to get over. It's about the hard work and the journey that you learn through all of that. There was lots of times in my master's degree that I want to say, this isn't worth it. Like, this is a lot of nights. This is time away from my family. This is stressful. But I had to commit myself to finishing, and coincided with basketball, man. You're in a bad practice or you're in a bad game. You got to commit yourself to finishing the play and, finishing the game out with your head held high and knowing that you did all that you could do.
Yeah. So walk me through. Okay, so the undergraduate degree, the bachelor's degree was in what?
Communications with a minor in psychology.
Okay. And then the master's degree, which was at Michigan State. And were you in person at Michigan State?
No, I was all online.
Okay. All right. So the master's degree was in what?
Sport coaching, leadership, and administration.
Okay. So walk me through that just a little bit. I'm just curious. Is that then heavily psychological? Is that heavily like organizational? How did that course work?
Yeah, you get just about everything. You get ethics, like how to make ethical decisions, which is super important for not only coaches but important for life decisions. You get how to teach young people sports. What does youth development look like, and how do you start as a youth coach? And you get the administrative side with business and how to run an organization. What it means to be structured in an organization. You get a lot of scenario built in. So like, I remember one course that I took, it was like, you have athletes, you're starting a practice and you notice your star athlete is, not themselves. Here are some choices. What choice would you make? And, you make the choice, and then it gives the science behind what the correct answer would have been. So it was really cool to like learn that. And then you're learning not just about basketball, but you're learning about all these other sports and, how it's different, because you're not in classes with just basketball players. You're in classes with football players, soccer players, like people that have been out of college for a long time, people that are still in college, that haven't started their coaching career. And for me, I was kind of one of the older ones. A lot of grad students were with me. Kids that were actually playing for Michigan State were in my classes. So that was kind of cool because I got to learn about their experience at Michigan State, and kind of, again, like helping them through decisions that they're going through at that time, because that's a pivotal time of like transitioning out of college sports into the real life, and that identity crisis that everybody goes through. And we learn about that too, how to help players navigate through that. One of the best things that I did was I actually learned about motivational interviewing and how to motivate people by, interviewing them through a specific set of questions. And my professor actually selected me to speak at the University of Kentucky, where I got to present my interview process that I did with an athlete, and what the results were of my processes and how I came to conclusions. And it was like, I never thought in a million years that I would be speaking in front of a bunch of very smart people about a paper I wrote and about a project that I did. Like, I'm literally like, what?
Well, I'm going to say this. First of all, I'd love to see that
Yeah.
for the paper ad, because that's fascinating to me.
Yeah.
But what I think is really cool about that too is because of the situation that you were in. I mean, in a lot of ways, almost immediately after you got out of sport, you've positioned yourself to mentor, like in every step you've taken. It sounds like there's been someone around you, and I mean, from a personal characteristic standpoint, it's not like everybody looks at the situation the way that you would. There's plenty of people who are too selfish and not selfless enough to look around and go, who might be able to be helped by what my experience is, and do your best to share that. So that's super cool. I think that you've taken on that mentorship role kind of wherever you've gone since athletics ended for you. A question I have, though, thinking about all the things that you've gone through now, and obviously, and so are you currently in the doctorate work? Are you trying to figure out the path you're taking? Where is that for you?
I'm actually getting interviewed by the dean of the doctorate program on Monday. And that's just a formal process of just, them asking me questions about what my interests are and, where I see myself in this program, what type of things would I like to study. And then from there, get accepted. And then I believe I would start in the fall.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's my question, because there's the question that could be asked, which is, what's the biggest lesson you've learned through education? But I don't like that kind of question, because I feel like it's like, well, there's so many things. You've had such a broad array and diversity of experiences in that mentorship leadership role, and really through teaching and coaching. What have you found to be the most all-encompassing theory or strategy that you've applied? So the thing that you've applied the most often to the broadest array of individuals, young, old, kids that are in your PE or your health classes that aren't athletes, to collegiate level individuals and everything in between.
I would say meeting people where they're at.
Okay.
I don't think that I, of course, have standards, and I don't like lowering standards for myself. If I have expectations, I want to keep those expectations at a level where I think that person is achievable. But if that person isn't there yet, then it's on me to kind of fill that gap of here they are, here's where I want them to be. I have to meet them right here. I can't just stay here and not force myself to help them get up to that level. And where you start is being personable and listening to them, listening to their story, listening to how they grew up, because inevitably we all are processes of how we got brought up in this world, and all of us are different. All of us have different things that we learned as a child, that, my story is way different than your story. And it's really important that you learn a ton about how that person got to where they're at. And for example, at school, they don't call me Miss Dunham. They call me Coach D. I think that's a way better impression for them to kind of I don't have to be so here comes Miss Dunham. It's just a simple title. It's it's the kids just chill out. They can talk to me like a human and not like a robot, like I'm some superior person. I want to be respected, but they get respect because, I'm giving them respect, and I'm saying no, just relax, relax, talk to me like a person, obviously appropriately.
But you're a human being to them, versus a, and kids don't understand the words feeling like a dictator or
Right.
that sort of thing, but they do. There's that sensation of just, I don't talk back to, I don't, I do everything that person says and don't question anything, versus, hey, we're humans here having a conversation. This isn't a dictatorship where I'm telling you what you do and you have to do it that exact way.
Yeah, one of my favorite lines is, we're all humans having a human experience. And I tell them all the time, whatever you think is the worst thing that you have ever done in your life, I've probably done it. And I give them different scenarios. My health class, it's really awesome because I get to talk to them in a classroom and not in a gym setting. But we get to talk when we have our social emotional learning lesson about, just emotions and what we all go through. And, I open up to them about my depression that I got diagnosed with in 2008 and the struggles that I went through with that, and having to balance depression, college athletics, college, school, friends, family, loss of a very big, important person in my life during that time. I talk about my experience leaving UW. I tell them the scenario that happened to me, and that's a lesson for them to be like, whoa, I can't believe she just shared that. But I'm I'm not afraid to tell you my mistakes, because what I'm trying to tell you is the things that you need to recognize as a human, that you're going to make mistakes, but how can you rebuttal off of it and spin it to be a positive thing? And when they see that and they hear that, every teacher comes to me and asks, how do you know them so well? And I'm I just show them who I am. And they love that. They love that I'm open like that. Because then they can let their guard down and let me in.
Yeah. I mean, the vulnerability piece, being real to them, like it's huge. And I want everyone to know, because we haven't really touched on this yet. So you coach, but from a teaching perspective, what ages are you teaching, and what classes are you teaching?
So I'm teaching K through 12th grade, and I teach physical education and health. Health is just 6th through 12th. Physical education is K through 12. So I spend my mornings with the high school and middle schoolers, and then I end my day with elementary.
My daughters are in 4th grade, and they are both intellectual in their own rights.
Yeah.
But PE class is their favorite class. And granted, they're both pretty darn good athletes. I don't take a lot of credit for that, but I put them in the position for that. But yeah, PE is a favorite of those age kids, and it is.
The coolest
It's
thing,
wild to watch them.
The coolest thing about elementary is, like, I love middle school and high school. Like, realistically, they're my jam, but elementary has been so cool because I'm like the coolest person in the whole school. Like, if I want to pump myself up for 5 minutes, I go in the cafeteria when they're eating lunch and they're like, Coach D, and they all come up to me. I get like a million hugs, and I'm like, oh yes, I'm still really cool.
At least you always have a place. Yes, like if you're just feeling down about yourself,
Get in the lunchroom. It's just like, seriously, they all attacked me like a blob, and I'm like kind of peeling them off of me at one point. I'm like, all right, Coach, she's got her hug quota in.
We all need those places where we just feel extra loved and extra wonderful, right?
Yeah, you can't get enough hugs, and let me tell you, I don't get enough hugs. I've had my butt slapped more than I've ever had, which I'm like, I haven't experienced this in 6th or 12th.
Are these the middle schoolers or these the high schoolers?
No, elementary. I was for my first 3 years of teaching, I was only 6th through 12th. This is my very first year of doing elementary, and so it's been like a very eye-opening experience for me, and I have much respect for any elementary teacher, because I'm like, I get them for 45, 50 minutes, and I'm like, holy smokes, sitting in a classroom with all of that's a lot of energy.
Well, and you get to help them expend the energy.
Yeah. Yes.
So to the one who has to somehow control.
Yeah, exactly.
Focus and listen to a reading passage,
Oh,
working on grammar or writing.
no. I don't know how they do that. Like, literally, I say, like, you have to be on some sort of medication to, like, do that in a classroom setting. Like, I developed this game in PE when I feel like everyone's psycho. I developed this game called the lap game, where they sit in the middle and I say things like, if your favorite color is blue, do a lap. And they are just trucking around the whole basketball court. I say, like, if your favorite, what's your favorite, I don't know, if Halloween's your favorite, do a lap. And they're just like cruising. And like by the end of that class, their faces are all red, their heads are all sweaty, and I'm like, I did my job.
I'm helping the other teachers.
Yeah.
All right. So then going back to, and we touched on this a little bit before we started, but I want to come back to this because I do feel like it's something that I'm passionate about. I mean, for me, physical health and the training piece for former athletes, I think is a hugely important piece, because you transition yourself from training, whether that's in the weight room, or in the case of basketball in the gym or the court to the field or whatever the thing might be, where you're doing the exercise for the purpose of competitive sport and with the end goal in mind. When sport goes away, I think then now there's this refinding or rekindling of that passion of physical exercise that kind of goes back to when you were a kid almost.
Mm-hmm.
These kids that you have, you're telling me about how you approach health class, because my experience with health class in 7th, 8th grade was you sit down and then you start talking about the birds and the bees. And it gets really uncomfortable because it's a middle schooler. Boys don't understand girls, and girls don't understand boys, and they all have girlfriends or boyfriends, but they really mean anything. And your approach to health class is a little bit different, and something that I really, really love. So I'd love to just have you share that.
So in my first year, I had a group of 8th graders that would ask me some of the most inappropriate questions during that talk. And I found myself, like, during that time, like, everyone was getting really antsy by the time we were in 45 minutes of class. And I was like, this just doesn't feel right to me. They're just sitting. And, I feel like I do a good job lecturing. Like, I don't feel like I'm boring. Like, I make it fun and stuff. But my framework changed when I started seeing a lot of kids, like, very sleepy and tired. And I'm looking at what they're eating. And I'm like, something needs to change here. So I went to my principal and I said, hey, can I change the way that I do health class? And she's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, I want to incorporate more movement in our class. And I'm having major behaviors happen at the end of class where, kids are getting out of hand. Like, I'm sending people to the office and we're getting into tiffs and they're fighting with each other, yada, yada. So I said, do you think that it'd be okay if we did 30 minutes of a lecture or paperwork or whatever we had to do to complete our assignments, and then the rest of the class hour, I take them to the gym and we do some type of movement, whether that's walking, jogging, yoga, they're shooting hoops, we play some sort of game, they go lift, something that gets them moving, because not everybody is having a gym class throughout their day. There's no movement. The only movement they get is walking between classes, which we're a very small school. So it's like 10 steps and they're at the next class. And she's like, I mean, if you get all of your requirements in, I have no problem with it. This opened up such a pathway for my students at school, because not only did they know I'm going to get some movement in, but they knew that they had to lock in for 30 minutes, and that I found that assignments were getting done. I found that their headspaces were better. I found after class they were happier. I found that, they were starting to eat lunch and starting to, understand what healthy eating means, because, one class, I even showed them how to make a protein shake. And when, I showed them, where we weren't just sitting in the classroom, like I took them and we went to the gym and I was like, hey, like, these are the lifts that you can do. And then let's make some protein shakes after. And you guys can see, like, after you're done working out, it's really vital that you get something in your system that's going to help you. And I just saw, like, their minds just go, on that. And that was hard for me to learn as a student athlete. Nutrition was like, I could play sports all day long. I could be in a gym all day long, but I didn't give a crap about my nutrition. I would eat McDonald's before games. Like it's crazy what I was eating, and not knowing what I was doing. But having the movement piece and then realizing that, yeah, it's about learning, but it's also about, getting that movement in. And it really helped my behaviors in class, and it helped everything for my students.
I mean, I'm not saying that this is your doctorate thesis. I'm just saying that might not be bad.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
But that as you're talking through it, I'm like, there's somebody that's going on to do more education, and it's going to have to kind of create our own path.
Yeah.
This idea of movement tied into learning.
Yeah.
The brain's ability to actually retain.
Yeah.
That information better.
I think you got something here, Jared.
I mean, I just assume. I'm not wanting to get a PS.
You're right. There's actually
I love that.
Yeah, there's actually a school up here that they just developed their brand new school, and this is kind of where I got this idea from, because what they do is they do a class and then they get 15 minutes in between classes for kids to go outside. They all go outside, no matter what.
K through 12? Is it?
No, this is
elementary.
It's K through, I think they're only to 8th grade. They're just starting a high school now. But that's kind of, I started hearing about this school and I was like, why aren't we all doing that? Like, why aren't we all letting them go outside? Like, getting some fresh air, like walking around, And so that's where I was kind of like, all right, could I do this with one of my classes? And I was like, I only get health class where we're sitting the whole time. So, why wouldn't I take this and run with it? And like I said, I've even encouraged some of our new teachers that have had bad behavior issues. I'm like, take them to the gym. Just let them walk around, let them get out all their wiggles that they have. And the kids with, ADHD and some of those kids that physically cannot sit in that desk for that long and cannot listen. Because let's be honest, even as adults, like our focus attention is like very short from what it used to be. And like for myself, like it has just helped me be a better teacher because I have to say the specific things that they need to learn and I can give them a time frame. And when people know time frames, they work hard.
Well, and it's Parkinson's law, right? However much time you have to get the task done is how long it's going to take.
Yep.
And for most things, I think in situations, at least my experience with my own daughters now, listening to what happens in a classroom setting and what they can get done, is that if they were given more clear guidelines on what needed to happen and how long they had, they could easily get it done.
Yeah.
And if it gets longer and extended, then they just have more time to do that ground and things that aren't productive.
Yeah.
There's a school that I know. You know what Kelly Starrett is? Kelly and Julie Starrett.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah. They started a school in California because that's where they live right now and where their kids go to school. I believe it was a preschool they started. But it allowed for freedom of movement. The kids weren't required to sit in regular chairs, and I'm not even sure they actually had regular chairs. They had balls and wedges, all kinds of things. So essentially allowing the kids to shape themselves however they wanted to.
Yeah.
And finding that they were actually getting better learning, better retention of information, because we're meant to move.
Yeah.
It's the point of us talking today with the podcast, but I mean, my passion is we are all just way too sedentary.
Yep. Yeah.
And even to the point of what you said of letting the kids walk, sure, but as human beings, I mean, unless you are in your 80s or more, where walking might be a strength training exercise, like people need to move with a purpose.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to give kids the opportunity to sprint and run and jump and climb and roll and effectively, not bounce off the walls. They could bounce off the walls, give them a trampoline wall to bounce off.
Yeah.
I feel like as a whole, we would just have such better kids,
Yep.
such better relationships with the teachers and with each other.
Yeah.
And then the learning environment changes too.
Yeah. I mean, movement is medicine. Like movement is medicine. And we realize, as educators, we have a lot up against ourselves when it comes to these behaviors and, things like ADHD being just way more prevalent than it ever has been. And I'm like, well, we need different medicine. We can't just say, put them on Adderall or put them on something, but it's like, why don't we do the movement piece? Wouldn't that be as much beneficial as giving them a pill? And I think if we allowed that freedom, to do that, we would give them the time frames. And, that's kind of like as adults, like you have a 30-minute window to work out. You give yourself 30 minutes, like you get done in 30 minutes. That's what it is. And that's your time. Like that's your movement piece. Well, why don't we do that with kids? This is the window that you have to get your stuff done. And if it's not done, we have to take longer in the classroom, and I've just seen kids busting out assignments faster and with quality because they know, like, I'm going to get all this energy out. Like, I just got to put in the work.
Well, and the idea of it's unstructured, for you? Is it unstructured?
Is it unstructured? Unstructured.
What, the actual time they had in the gym.
It sometimes is unstructured. Sometimes I give them a time frame of like, hey, we're going to do laps for 10 minutes. Then the rest of the time you can, whatever sport you want to play, or if you want to go in the weight room, whatever you want to do. Then sometimes it's, you guys choose what you want to do. Like the other day, my health class was like, could we play hide and go seek in the dark? And I was like, you want to play that? And they're like, yeah. So I was like, all right. They were so sweaty after that, like running after and chasing each other. And I was like, I mean, these are 9th graders. Like,
how old are they?
9th grade in high school. Like they don't,
So refreshing to hear.
like they don't do that anymore. But they wanted to do it in health class, and I was like, let's do it. And like they're like, that was so fun. And I was like, yeah, it's like bringing back those childish, things to like make them, hey, you're still a kid. You're still
Such a time developmentally where I feel like, and I was the same way, and I imagine you were too, most of us were, but you hold yourself back from so much childlike behavior because you're afraid of how somebody's going to perceive that, right? It's all about perception. It's all about status and what people think of me at that point in your life.
Yeah.
You just become really hyper aware of that.
Yeah.
You shut the lights off, and all of a sudden, ninth graders act like 12-year-olds, 10-year-olds, and 9-year-olds.
They were screaming. Yeah, they were screaming on the top of their lungs. I was like, oh my gosh.
That's fantastic. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. And in PE class, I have a segment where we do dance. And like that also is like where they're all like shy and awkward. And I'm like, but this is important for you guys to learn this stuff too, and to be awkward and to be shy and to come out of yourself a little bit. And it's been a hit because a lot of the high schoolers take it, and they take it when the prom's about to come up. And I'm like, see, now you know dance moves on the dance floor. You don't have to be a weirdo sitting in the chair.
That's a smart way to approach it. I like that. I wish my gym teachers would have thought about that and used that, because that would help me a lot. Being the awkward white guy dancing.
Yep. We do slow dancing too. I'm like, you're gonna need to know how to dance. You're not stepping on someone's foot that you're getting married to, or it's important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my big things is being the example. My brand Fit Legacy, my tagline is "Be the example," and I feel like in a lot of ways, you are being the example for these kids that you're impacting, and again, at such diverse levels, which is phenomenal. But also, I think that from the start, we talked about this, is that, being human is part of this whole process also. You've stated in the past you haven't been perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not perfect now. You're not perfect now. What is the thing that you're currently struggling with the most as you're moving into this next direction of the path of doctorate and balance? And again, now you're going to be balancing more balls.
Mm-hmm. I think just staying consistent with my own health. When I got out of college, I was kind of like you talked about. I was trying to find my way back to the gym, trying to find my way back to working out. And when you leave college, those are all planned for you. Like, hey, we have weights on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and it's like, those are all planned. And then you step out of college and you're like, holy smokes, nobody's telling me when to work out or what to do when you work out or how. Yeah, you're not working out with a bunch of people. Like, you're by yourself. And for me, like, that was a struggle at first. But then I got into the bodybuilding world, and that kind of showed me like dietary. Like, I learned more about the human body and how different things react for different people. I learned about body dysmorphia. I learned about, all of the things that came to training, and training effectively. And then I started a family, and we adopted a little girl, and I kind of, again, like set myself aside. And I've always like not completely taken that out of the equation. Like, I've always been moving and doing stuff, but like having a regiment, and like sticking to my nutrition regiment and sticking to my physical fitness regiment that I was so good in for about 4 years after college athletics. I got away from it. And so being more consistent with my own health, I think, is like a very big priority for me right now.
Cool. I mean, it's such a hugely challenging thing, in my opinion, and something that it's a theory I have, essentially, because when talking to athletes, when you were an athlete, effectively that was your job.
Yep.
But when you move away from that, and as life moves on, and I was actually listening to this conversation between Tim Ferriss and Dr. Arthur Brooks yesterday, and talking about how, as life goes on, it just gets more complex.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And when life gets more complex, all of a sudden the things that were really important to you or felt simple and easy to do become that much more difficult.
Yes.
You've got to navigate those changes, and really important things happen. In your case, in a lot of people's cases, men and women, you have kids.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, it's not somebody who you made the choice to love. It's somebody who you love unconditionally because they're your child,
Mm-hmm.
no matter how that manifests.
Right.
And yet, there was a time when working out, and this is a case for a lot of people too, is when you work out through your 20s and even your early 30s, and you're trying, in a lot of ways, you're working out to find somebody. And you're like, I'm an impressive person.
Yeah.
Working out so hard, I'm looking so good. Yeah. And then you find that person like, well, I'm good now, right?
Hey, you get comfy.
But then refinding why it matters.
Yep.
And then for a lot of parents, it goes back to I want to be active and engaged with my kids. And I think it's what's even cooler for someone like you is you get to have kids of all ages effectively forever.
Yeah.
Not your own.
Yeah.
But kids who are directly impacted. And I love the fact that you're Coach D.
Yep.
Versus Mrs. Dunham or SD or anything else. Because it breaks down that barrier. Yep. And even when I think about that, I think about the people who I called coach versus the people who I called Mr. or Mrs. Mm-hmm. Not that I believe in formality or informality kind of thing.
Yeah.
But just that piece of it. You feel a deeper connection, a relationship with that person, I feel like. And giving the opportunity to impact that way and demonstrate, like I said, be the example. Mm-hmm. I love it. I think it's a struggle that everyone's going through in various ways, shapes, and forms. And it's got to continue on.
Yeah.
That's what's cool about it, right?
That is what's very cool about it. And honestly, I never thought that I would be back in a school setting, let alone K through 12 setting. I always envisioned myself as a college coach forever and ever. But when I got to the high school that I'm at, I recognized how many kids needed a Coach D. Like how many kids that weren't even athletes, more so kids that weren't athletes, needed a Coach D. They needed someone that they could just talk to like a human and not be looked down upon for who they are or, what's going on in their life or the parents that they have or whether or not they're going to be accepted for who they are. Because they see me live who I am. And I think a lot of people, even if they don't identify themselves the same way as me, can respect that. Because ultimately we all should be living how we should want to live and, have the respect for that, for people to genuinely be who they want to be.
I love that. A big part of what I want to do with this podcast also is just allowing you to tell your story, but in the process of doing so, having listeners hear it and go, wow, I'm going through similar things. And there's a myriad of stuff that we didn't even get to that you have in your life and who you are that people could find and connect with. And so what I would love from you is just to those listening, whether they're former athletes or they're not, where can people go to find you, to connect with you best?
Sure. So I'm on Facebook, Mariah Dunham, and I'm also on Instagram. And I believe it's my Instagram handle is here. It's been a minute since I've checked my own Instagram handle. Doesn't that make me old?
I mean, we've been talking about this in our gym. There's certainly a general predisposition towards kind of avoiding social media.
Yeah, well, I am on social media, and I am an active social media, but so it's Mariah_Dunham14 and Instagram. So I'm actually finding more of my political voice right now with everything going on, and I think with all of my experiences that I've lived thus far and the ability to connect to all sorts of different people with different mind frames and different skill sets. I think that's honestly how we change things, is like I said, meeting people where they're at and learning people and learning about how did you come up with that idea, and being curious about people instead of putting your wall up and being like, I don't want to talk to you. And the more we don't talk, the more we don't know. And so I think it's very vital right now that we stay curious.
Yeah. I mean, be curious, be willing to argue, and not be enemies.
Right.
They're just such big pieces right now in our culture.
Yeah. And I think, it does come from leadership, and it does come from, I guess what you would say the top is and who the leader is at this moment. But the rhetoric, of being like enemies, them versus us type thing, well, it's never gotten a team anywhere. And when I speak about that, it's like we are all on the same team. We all have different ideas about winning and how you get to win, but ultimately we all want to win. So it's like, can we take a little page off of everyone's books and come together and realize that we all want the same things for people? We're just saying it differently, and to listen for those things.
Cool.
Yeah.
Mariah, thank you for today. I am tremendously grateful for your time, and I am really excited to see where you go. And again, I'd want the manuscript from your master's program.
You got it. Thank you so much for having me. Anytime I'm able to, send a message to people or share my story, anytime I get in front of people to share my experiences, I'm just grateful that you're offering me this light to do that.
Wonderful.
Thanks for listening to The Human Athlete. These conversations remind us that who we are beyond sport matters just as much as who we were in it. If this episode made you think or helped you see your own story a little differently, share it with someone who might need to hear it. I'm Jared Markiewicz, and until next time, keep showing up, keep growing, and keep finding ways to win the game that matters the most: life.